Hello, am I audible? Good afternoon. Am I audible? Am I audible? Can someone write? Okay, so today I'm continuing forward from the structure. This is the structure I have discussed with you. This is the alpha beta dimer 1. This is alpha beta dimer 2. So these are the strong interactions, primarily hydrophobic, between alpha beta chains. And these are the weak ionic and hydrogen bond, which we call as salt bridges between the two dimers. And as the oxygen moves in, it forms a bond with the iron, coordinate 6th coordinate bond with the iron. So there is breakage of these salt bridges. Okay. And the 4 heme moieties, they get oxygenated. Next slide. स्लाइड नहीं मूव हो रही हमेशा. हाँ, स्लाइड नहीं मूव हो रही है हमेशा. हाँ, हाँ. So in our last class, we have read about the hemoglobin structure and how oxygen binds with the hemoglobin. It is the coordinate type of, this is cooperative type of binding with the 6th coordinate valency of iron. So this is how the ये ना यहाँ पे भी डिस्टर्बेंस हो रही है इसकी वजह से. ठीक है, ये यहाँ पे दिख नहीं रहा ना, इसको मिनिमाइज कर सकते हैं. ये कलर उसकी जरूरत नहीं. ठीक है. Yeah, yeah. So there is movement of iron atom in the plane of the porphyrin ring. It is usually 0.06 nanometer above the plane. As soon as oxygen binds, it moves inside the plane, and there is breakage of salt bridges. And due to this, there is rotation of alpha 2, beta 2 subunit through 15 degree. So this is how it appears. If we draw a diagram, this is 0.6 nanometer above the plane, and as soon as oxygen binds, it gets drawn into the plane. There is also the movement of this proximal histidine, and as soon as this proximal histidine gets moved, there is movement of F helix, EF corner, FG corner, there is conformational changes and dissolution of existing non-covalent bonds and formation of new ones at the heterodimer interfaces. So the structural change in one subunit of hemoglobin on oxygenation is communicated to the other subunit. There is distortion in the neighboring chain and further oxygen binding binds very easily. So this is 15-degree rotation between the alpha beta 1 and alpha 2 beta 2 dimer. As soon as the oxygen enters the, binds the alpha 1 heme moiety. So this is different pictorial presentations. So this is the, when 4 heme moieties, they are bound with the oxygen, it is known as HbO8. That is the relaxed form. I just want to show you a video how this movement happens. Be able to hear the audio, but this is hemoglobin, myoglobin present in muscle, present in blood. This is transporter, this is storage. 46 amino acid. These are the helical sections, 8 helical section and 1 heme moiety, 4 polypeptide chain. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. 8 helical regions. This is heme moiety. This is central iron bound to the 4 nitrogen and 2 more coordinate valencies, one with iron and another with the proximal histidine. Four nitrogen, 4 pyridine rings, and 5th by the imidazole nitrogen of histidine F8, that is proximal histidine. This is oxygen. As soon as oxygen binds, it draws the iron in the plane of the porphyrin ring. There is movement. They move relative to each other due to breakage of the salt bridges. And so 2 types of bonds. One are the packing contacts, which we have made between the alpha beta and then sliding between the 2 dimers, alpha beta 1 and alpha beta 2 dimers, relative to each other when oxygen binds. So it acts as a storage molecule, whereas oxyhemoglobin acts as a transporter molecule. This is a sigmoidal shaped curve, whereas in the myoglobin it is hyperbolic curve. This is a cooperative type of a binding. So again, coming to the slides. So this is how the hemoglobin molecule, this globin chain has heme moiety in the surfaces formed by the hydrophobic moieties of the amino acid, and this is one hemoglobin. This is one oxygen binding to each heme moiety. This is the cooperative binding, and it increases as the saturation of the oxygen increases. Once only one moiety is bound, it is partially saturated, and if all the four oxygen moieties they are bound to the heme of the hemoglobin, it is 100% saturated. So the oxygen binding occurs in response to the high partial pressure of oxygen in the tissues, lungs, because highest is in the partial pressure happens in the lungs. So we can graphically, if we represent the partial pressure of oxygen and the percentage saturation of hemoglobin, it is known as oxygen dissociation curve, or oxyhemoglobin curve also known as, which is sigmoidal in nature. And this is because of the cooperative binding of the oxygen. If the when the partial pressure means the dissolved oxygen is less, the binding is less, and as soon as the partial pressure increases, the binding increases and the saturation also increases. So it is a sigmoidal shaped curve. The amount of oxygen that is saturated, that it is basically drawn on the y-axis, and the partial pressure is drawn on the x-axis, and the saturation depends totally on the amount of the dissolved oxygen. So amount of oxygen carried by hemoglobin rises rapidly up to PO2 60 mmHg. That is a steep slope, but above that the curve becomes flattened. So here initial, when the partial pressure is low, the binding is hardly up to 30%, whereas from 20 to this 60, if there is sharpest rise, it increases from 30 to 90%, and from 90 till further the partial pressure increases, the saturation increases up to 100%. So this process where the one heme moiety binds to first oxygen and it increases the affinity of second oxygen for the other heme moieties, this process is known as positive cooperativity. So again, this is the curve, sigmoidal shape curve. This is again the different pictorial representation. So in lungs, the partial pressure is approximately 100 millimeter of mercury. At this partial pressure, there is high affinity to the there is hemoglobin has a high affinity towards oxygen. It is 98% saturated, whereas in tissues, the partial pressure is between 40 to 60, depending on the tissues. In the exercising muscles, it is approximately 20, whereas in the tissues, it is approximately 40, 45. So this at 40, even 40 partial pressure of oxygen, mm of Hg, the pressure, this oxygen is the hemoglobin is saturated up to 75%, whereas at 20 millimeter of mercury, the partial pressure, this percentage saturation is hardly up to 35%. So this much oxygen can be released for the availability of tissues who are metabolizing and need oxygen for the metabolic processes. So in the tissues of other organs, a typical PO2 is 40 millimeter of mercury, and hemoglobin has a lower affinity for oxygen and offloads oxygen to the tissues. So this is why myoglobin, which is a parabolic curve, sorry, hyperbolic curve, it doesn't has, because you can see that it can show, release only up to 7% of available oxygen to the tissues. That is why it helps in the storage. When in exercising muscles, when the partial pressure of oxygen reduces up to 20 mm of Hg, it can help in release of the oxygen. But in other tissues, hemoglobin acts as a transporter, and it can release up to 66% of the oxygen. So the sigmoid shape of the oxygen dissociation curve shows that with a small drop in partial pressure of oxygen, a significant amount of oxygen release, that is offloading of oxyhemoglobin, happens. So the hello, 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 hello. So oxyhemoglobin reaching to the tissues, it doesn't release the oxygen completely at one instance. So it is released as per the cellular need, rather than the whole oxygen releasing collectively. So this has its own significance because it prevents the generation of oxygen derived free radicals, which in turn protect the peroxidation of cellular biomolecules by the action of ROS. And this phenomena, we have seen that it is defined by the cooperativity of oxygen binding to the heme molecules. So now comes a term P50. What is P50? This is the partial pressure of the oxygen at which the hemoglobin is 50% saturated with the oxygen, and it is usually for HbA1, your HB, normal adult hemoglobin, it is 27 millimeter of mercury, whereas for myoglobin, this P50 is hardly 1 mm or 1 to 2 mm of mercury. So you can see from this slide, hardly at 1 to 2 mm, your myoglobin is saturated up to 50%. So why this happens? Because it is either saturated or not saturated, because it has only single heme moiety. So it has an increased affinity for oxygen. So myoglobin stores oxygen temporarily in the muscles and act as a reservoir in the muscles, which can be used during the exercise. So this is difference between the two curves. Myoglobin curve is hyperbolic, hemoglobin is sigmoidal. Hemoglobin, this affinity of myoglobin is oxygen affinity is more in myoglobin than the hemoglobin. Half saturation is 1 mm, whereas it is, some book says 1 to 2, some says 2. So it doesn't matter. And for hemoglobin, it is 26 millimeter. There is no Bohr effect. We will discuss in next few slides. No cooperativity in myoglobin, because there is only one heme moiety. Either it is binding with the oxygen or it is not binding with the oxygen. And there is no 2,3 BPG effect. So there is only one moiety, which is given when the cell in the severe exercise, when the partial pressure reduces less than the 20 mm of Hg. So now comes the allosteric effect. So allosteric, what is the meaning of this allosteric? You will read about this allosteric effect in detail in the enzyme section. But allo means separate, another, and steric means side. So a protein that exhibits change in the ligand affinity under the influence of other molecules. So these molecules, they are known as allosteric effector, and this affect binding at the other site, spatially distinct site where the ligand binds, they are known as the allosteric site. And these molecules which show this effect is known as allosteric effect. And this can be homotropic, where the same molecules bind the uh, if the same molecules affects its own binding, like you have seen in oxygen, there is positive allosteric effect. One molecule of oxygen, when it binds with the one hemoiety, it affects the binding of all the other hemoieties. Similarly, the heterotropic means the binding of one ligand is affecting the binding of the other ligand, like 2,3-DPG, carbon dioxide, H plus ions, proton ions, they affect the binding of the rest of the oxygen moieties with the hem molecules. So hemoglobin is an allosteric protein. Again, because this property goes to its structural component. It is a quaternary structure having oligomeric monomers. So oxygen binding and release from hemoglobin are regulated by the allosteric interactions. Allosteric effectors or modulators bind to a protein at a site separate from the functional binding site. They can be activators, they can be inhibitors also. The activity of allosteric protein is regulated by these allosteric effectors. So what are the 4 factors which affect the binding of oxygen with the heme moieties of hemoglobin? And they help in loading and unloading of oxygen at lungs and the tissues. So these are the following are the allosteric effector: partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, pH of the environment, and availability of 2,3 this BPG, this phosphoglycerate. So we have already read about, when I was discussing about the ODC, that in the lungs the partial pressure is quite high, nearing about 100 to 120. So this favors oxygenation leading to the TOT form. This favors the oxygenation and loading of oxygen by the deoxyhemoglobin. The T form gets transformed to the R form, that is oxyhemoglobin. Whereas at the tissues, the partial pressure is as low as 35 to 40 mmHg. This favors deoxygenation and unloading of oxygen by oxyhemoglobin. So R form gets transformed to the T form. Again, how this the partial pressure of carbon dioxide and the pH of the environment, it affects the binding of oxygen. So there is whenever there is high concentration which happens in the tissues which are actively metabolizing, they are generating lot of carbon dioxide and the protons. So these values, they help in the favors the oxyhemoglobin to lose affinity for oxygen, means the relaxed form gets converted back to the T form, and this helps in the unloading or offloading of oxygen at the tissues. So here comes the Bohr's effect, which is given by this term is on the name of a Danish physiologist, Christian Bohr, who explained that oxygen binding affinity of hemoglobin is inversely proportional to the concentration of carbon dioxide and H plus concentration. So there is increased concentration of PCO2 and H plus at the tissue level, and there is shifting of the curve, this ODC curve, yes, this curve towards the right. And at the lungs, where there is decreased PCO2 and H plus concentration, there is more binding of oxygen to the hemoglobin and the curve shifts to the left. So Bohr effect facilitates the oxygen release from hemoglobin at the tissues and oxygen uptake of hemoglobin at the lungs. So next comes the next allosteric effector is 2,3-DPG. 2,3-DPG is the most abundant organic phosphate in the erythrocyte. How it is formed? It is formed as an intermediate of the glycolytic pathway from 1,3-BPG. And this cycle is known as Rapaport-Lebring cycle. This 2,3-DPG, it binds to deoxyhemoglobin. It doesn't bind to oxyhemoglobin, means it favors the tense form, and it decreases the affinity of oxygen to hemoglobin and leads to the release of the oxygen to the tissues. So one molecule of 2,3-DPG binds with one molecule of deoxyhemoglobin in the central cavity of the 4 subunits. This is how it binds. Between the 2 beta subunit, because it is negatively charged, it is bound to the 2 beta subunit, which has positive charge formed by the because of the lysine and histidine molecules, and 2,3-DPG being a negative molecule, it binds in the pocket formed by the globin chain in the central cavity of the deoxygenated T form of the hemoglobin tetramer. And so one molecule of 2,3-D, only one molecule, it binds with the one molecule of the tetramer of deoxyhemoglobin in the central cavity of the 4 subunit. This central cavity has positively charged moieties because of the histidine and lysine, and the ionic bonds are formed between the positively charged amino acid of beta globin with the negatively charged phosphate of 2,3-DPG. And due to this binding, there is because salt bridges they are formed, so this 2,3-DPG stabilize the deoxygenated, that is the T form, by cross-linking the beta chains. And oxygenation, this cavity, this pocket which is formed, it gets it gets collapsed, and there is release of 2,3-DPG, and this is expelled from on oxygenation. This cavity pocket or this cavity gets collapsed, and 2,3-DPG is expelled from the pocket, and oxyhemoglobin reattains the R form of the structure. So what is the clinical significance of 2,3-DPG? 2,3-DPG, I have told you, it is the most abundant phosphate moiety of the erythrocyte. So in hypoxia, 2,3-DPG is elevated. Like these are the conditions of the hypoxia, like high altitude when you go on the hills, and there is some pathological condition like obstructive pulmonary emphysema. So there is increased formation of 2,3-DPG. It leads to the release of oxygen to the tissues. Similarly, in anemia, their levels are increased, and they lead to increased oxygen demands supplied to the tissues, and in order to cope up with the oxygen demands of the body. And similarly, when we transfuse the blood, we usually store the blood in the citrate dextrose medium, and slowly, because the glycolysis is going on, so there is reduced concentration of 2,3-DPG, and such this stored blood, they are usually fails to supply oxygen to the tissues immediately. So what the measure has been taken, this inosine has been added to prevent the decrease of 2,3-DPG. The ribose moiety of inosine gets phosphorylated and enters the hexose monophosphate pathway, and finally gets converted to 2,3-DPG. About this we will read in detail in the metabolism. So these are the factors which are shifting the curve towards the right. They are increased temperature whenever there is muscle is contracting or there is fever, and highly metabolizing tissues which are producing lot of carbon dioxide. Similarly, I've told you the condition, adaptation towards the hypoxia, the levels of 2,3-DPG increases, and because when partial pressure of carbon dioxide is increases, the pH also reduces because lot of protons are released. So all these factors, they leads to shifting of the ODC curve towards the right, whereas the opposite happens when all these factors opposite of these factors like decreased temperature, decreased PCO2, increased pH, and decreased 2,3-DPG, they shifts the ODC curves toward the left. So these are the various conditions. The oxygen, hemoglobin, when they get shifted towards left and when they get shifted towards the right. So during exercise, there will be decreased PO2 in the capillaries of the active muscles, increased temperature, increased carbon dioxide, decreased pH due to acidic metabolites. Lot of lactic acid has been produced, which reduces the pH, and there is increased 2,3-DPG in the RBCs. by the anaerobic glycolysis. So all these factors leads to the shifting of oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right, means decreased affinity of hemoglobin to the oxygen, means more release of oxygen to the tissues. Now comes the carbon dioxide transport. Once the carbon dioxide is released from the cells, it is carried in the blood primarily in the three ways, because you have seen the metabolizing tissues are producing lot of carbon dioxide by the Krebs cycle. So now the carbon dioxide has to be transported and taken back to the lungs so that it can be expelled in the expiration. So how it will reach in the to the lungs, by either it get dissolved in the plasma, or it gets transported as the bicarbonate ions, or they get bound to the hemoglobin itself. So when carbon dioxide diffuse from the tissues in the blood, 7% remain dissolved in the plasma, 23% combine in the erythrocyte with the deoxyhemoglobin to form carb amino compounds, and 70% combine in the erythrocyte with water to form carbonic acid, which then dissociate to yield the bicarbonate and H plus ion. So this is the main pathway, and you have read about this when you have already read in the physiology. And again, I'm going to explain it when this is formed, how it is formed with the help of enzyme carbonic dehydrogenase. Lot of H2CO3 is produced from water and carbon dioxide, and H2CO3 it gets reduced to, it gets converted to bicarbonate ions and H plus ions. H plus ions are buffered by the hemoglobin, and carbon dioxide, this bicarbonate ions, they gets I'm just showing in the next few slides. So carbon dioxide entering in the blood diffuses into RBCs rapidly hydrated to H2CO3 in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. It dissociates into H plus and bicarbonate ions. H plus is buffered by the reduced, that is deoxygenated hemoglobin, and bicarbonate concentration in RBCs increases. Due to this increase, some of the bicarbonate diffuses out to the plasma, and because to maintain the electric neutrality, the chloride ions migrate from the plasma into the red cells. I have explained this concept of electrical neutrality in the Donen membrane equilibrium also. So this is what happens from the tissues. It is coming to the RBCs, where with the help of carbonic anhydrase, it gets converted into carbonic acid, gets broken down into bicarbonate and H plus. The protons are, because hemoglobins contain 38 histidine moieties, so it acts as a good buffer. So it takes the H plus ions, because it has histidine moieties which get imidazole group, which has imidazole group, which can take the H plus ions and help in the formation of salt bridges in the alpha beta 1 and alpha beta 2 dimers. So this happens in the deoxygenated, that is in the taut form. Whereas excess of bicarbonate, it gets shifted outside in the plasma, and there is shift of chloride ions. So this happens at the tissue level, whereas the opposite happens in the lung alveoli. Here the partial pressure is less, carbon dioxide partial pressure is less. So the H bicarbonate again comes back to RBCs from plasma. Chloride shifts out. This is reverse chloride shift. The H bicarbonate ions, they combine with H plus ions to form carbonic acid, which further get, because this carbonic anhydrase, it catabolizes a reversible step. So this gets converted into carbon dioxide and water. This carbon dioxide, it gets expelled during the expiration, and some of the carbon dioxide is coming in the plasma in the form of carb amino proteins. So just I'm explaining again the chloride shift. The increased bicarbonate in both the RBCs and plasma, increased chloride inside the RBCs, increased osmotic pressure inside RBCs, water shift from plasma. So increased RBCs volume leading to increased hematocrit value. So buffering of the tidal carbon dioxide with very little change in pH, as I've already shown you. So this is a reverse chloride shift. I have explained you. So most of the bicarbonate, this I have already explained. So this is another graphical representation what I have shown you. So there are T forms and R forms of hemoglobin. Deoxyhemoglobin is in the T form. It binds with carbon dioxide, H plus ions and 2,3-DPG, whereas oxyhemoglobin is in the R form, binds only with the oxygen. Now in the new curriculum, we have introduced one section where you get the similarities and differences between in your questions, you get in your question paper, you get these kinds of questions, similarities and difference between the any two molecules. So here it is the difference between T form of hemoglobin and the R form. So there are 8 salt bridges which are formed in the T form and they link between the dimer subunit, whereas in R form, salt bridges are broken. It is more constrained form, less constrained form. 2,3-TPG is centrally located in T form, whereas it is extruded from the R form. T form has low affinity for oxygen, whereas it has higher affinity for oxygen. T form of hemoglobin predominates in the low PO2, whereas R form of hemoglobin predominates at the higher partial pressure of oxygen. Now comes another term that is known as glycosylated hemoglobin. Usually the hemoglobin, it binds covalently with the glucose. This is non-enzymatic bond formation, and whenever there is excess glucose concentration, the level usually rises. Normally the normal levels are between 3 to 6%, whereas these levels are increased in diabetes mellitus because there is hyperglycemia. So amino acid sequence of HbA1c, sorry, so addition of sugar moiety to the valine moiety occurs non-enzymatically, valine of the beta subunit, by the addition of glucose directly to the protein. So diagnostic importance is in the diabetes mellitus diagnosis, because this is uh, directly related. Rate of synthesis of HbA1c is directly related to the exposure of RBCs to the glucose. So concentration of HbA1c serves as an indication of blood glucose concentration over a period, because you know that RBC's lifespan is 120 days. So it reflects a mean glucose blood level over 3 months period prior to its measurement. So these levels may be elevated in diabetic patient up to 15%. For determination of HbA1c is used as monitoring of diabetes. So level less than 7%, they are considered to be a good control for a diabetic patient. Now comes the carboxy HP. So carbon monoxide, it is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas which is produced as a toxic industrial pollutant, and it has affinity for hemoglobin 200 times more than that of the oxygen. So the normal carbon monoxide concentration is less than 0.16 gram percent, whereas in smoker their levels are quite raised. So carbon monoxide is produced by incomplete combustion, and you must have read or heard from your grandparents that during their time they used to burn the charcoal in angithis, and and if you close all the doors, there is lot of production of carboxyhemoglobin, carbon monoxide, because of the production of carbon monoxide. So cyanosis may happen when there is carbon monoxide poisoning. So the clinical manifestations are headache, nausea, vomiting. Please correct the spelling of vomiting, breathlessness, irritability. And 40 to 60% of hemoglobin saturated with carbon monoxide leads to death. And administration of oxygen mask, it is the treatment and this is used for the mine workers to reverse the toxicity of carbon monoxide. Whereas in case of severe toxicity of carbon monoxide, oxygen under high pressure, that is hyperbolic oxygen, is given as a treatment choice. So now comes various structural aspect of hemoglobin. There are various types of hemoglobin: HbA1, HbA2, HbF, HbA1c, which is a glycated, which I have just discussed. HbA1 has two alpha subunit and two beta subunit, alpha 1 beta 1 dimer and alpha 2 beta 2 dimer, and it is maximum percentage present in the adult hemoglobin. So it is 97% of the total hemoglobin concentration, whereas HbA2, it has two delta units instead of two beta subunits, and it has 5% in the normal blood, whereas this is HbF is the fetal hemoglobin. So we have seen there are two gamma subunit here, and it is hardly 2% of the total percentage of hemoglobin, whereas glycated hemoglobin, it is normally less than 5% in the normal individual, and in for the prognosis of diabetes, for a follow-up patient of diabetes, the level should be less than 7%. So usually, I just want to show this graph. This is the normal synthesis of alpha chain. These are the gestational period before the birth: 0, 12, 18, 24 weeks, 30 weeks, 36 weeks. These are prenatal age, before a child is born, when the mother is pregnant, and this is postnatal age. If we draw this and we draw the part of the total synthesis of globin chain, we can show alpha chains are produced. Initially, they are produced in the yolk sac, then liver, then spleen, and then finally bone marrow. Whereas initially in the prenatal life, either there is epsilon chain or there is different this is HB growers, and finally there is synthesis at approximately 36 weeks. 12-week gamma chains have started synthesizing, and their levels increases maximally up to 36 weeks, and after that they start decreasing, and in the adult RBCs, HbF levels are hardly 2%, and along with after birth the delta chains also start synthesizing, and they constitute HbA2 and 5% of the total hemoglobin. Again, going back to this slide, HbA1 97%, HbA2 5%, fetal hemoglobin 2%, and this is HB grower 1. These are the hemoglobins which are found at the fetal life, but they are absent in the adult life because their synthesis stops before birth. So HB grower 1, then HB grower 2, when the alpha 2 chains, this their synthesis increases, then HB Portland. By the end of the first trimester, these two chains, they are replaced by alpha and gamma chains. I've told you that by the 12 weeks, the gamma chain starts synthesizing, reached at the peak, remain constant till 36 weeks, and then starts decreasing. So beta subunit synthesis begins in the third trimester. So this beta subunit synthesis, it starts synthesizing in the third trimester. After 22 weeks, they start increasing. So HbF has gamma globin, less positive amino acids, so it has weak binding of 2,3-DPG and the higher affinity for O2 compared to the adult hemoglobin. So we have seen the ODC. So the graph will shift if we see that oxygen saturation curve, the sigmoidal curve again shifts back to the towards the right. So binding affinity for oxygen of HbF is more than HbA, and the partial pressure of HbF is 20, P50 is 20, whereas P50 of HbA is 26. So this helps. This difference between the two partial P50 partial pressures in fetal hemoglobin as well as in the adult hemoglobin helps in the transfer of oxygen from maternal blood to the fetus blood, because maternal blood has mostly adult HbA hemoglobin, whereas fetal globin fetus contains HbF. So it helps in the delivery of oxygen to the fetus. So again, you can see the curve has shifted towards the HbF has greater affinity to oxygen than hemoglobin. So low oxygen percentage by time blood reaches the placenta, and this is the shifting. This is fetal hemoglobin. The curve shifts toward the, I think I've spoken right initially, so it shifts toward the left. And what is the adaptive advantage? Because it helps in the delivery of oxygen from fetal blood to the from maternal blood to the fetal blood, because of its higher affinity towards the oxygen. So this is the differentiation of HbA from the HbF, 2 alpha, 2 beta, whereas in HbF there are 2 alpha and 2 gamma chains. It is denatured by alkali, the adult hemoglobin, whereas the HbF, it is resistant to alkali denaturation. At pH 8.9, hemoglobin A moves ahead of the, this is the electrophoresis. This term, this difference I'm talking of, the when we run the normal hemoglobin, there are in the process of electrophoresis at the pH 8.9, HbA moves ahead of HbF. I will show you the electrophoresis of hemoglobin in the next class. So HbF moves behind HbA. 2,3-DPG content is high, whereas 2,3-DPG content is low because of its more affinity towards oxygen, and because the gamma chains, they are less positive. So affinity of oxygen in HbA is less, of affinity of oxygen is more. So delivery power of oxygen is more, leads to unloading and helps in the supply of oxygen to the tissues for the metabolism. Whereas delivery power of oxygen is decreased. Concentration at HB birth of HbA is 85%, whereas its concentration HbF is 15%, and by the end of first year, HbF completely disappears. And if it is still persisting, there is some pathological causes should be found out. So the globin synthesis chain, how it happens? There are globin chains, they are organized into 2 gene families or cluster. I think just these 2 more slides and then I will finish, wind up my lecture. So today, till now, what we have read, till here, what we have read about the cooperativity of oxygen, sigmoidal curve, and the hyperbolic curve of hemoglobin and myoglobin respectively. What is the significance of sigmoidal curve of hemoglobin? And what are the various factors, allosteric factors, which affect the binding, like partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, pH, and the temperature, and 2,3-DPG. So what are their significance? Why these allosteric factors are there? Because of the tetramer of the hemoglobin, adult hemoglobin HbA, and the cooperative binding of the oxygen moieties, and how there is shifting of the curve, sigmoidal curve from left and right. What is their significance, and how carbon dioxide it is carried in the body, in which form? Mainly 7% in the dissolved form, 75 in the bicarbonate form, and 23% in the hemoglobin form. And then come various types of then carboxyhemoglobin, where carbon monoxide, which has 200 times more affinity for the hemoglobin, it helps in reducing the delivery of oxygen towards the tissue, because then once bind, it gets converted to a relaxed form, and the oxygen affinity for rest of the moieties of oxygen, because one carbon monoxide binds to one subunit of a tetramer. So rest 3 gets converted to the rest structure gets converted towards the relaxed form, leading to more affinity for the oxygen, and less oxygen will be available for the metabolism. And there were symptoms of carboxy hemoglobin toxicity, the treatment, oxygen and hyperbaric oxygen, and then the different HbA1c, how it is formed, basically non-enzymatic addition of glucose from the blood to the valine chain of the beta subunit, and how it is helpful in monitoring the diabetic patient, what are the normal levels, what are abnormal levels, and then various forms of hemoglobin, adult HbA1 and HbA2. These are two adult hemoglobins, 95% HbA1, 5% HbA2, 2% HbF. And what is the significance of hemoglobin F? Now, little bit about the globin synthesis chain. So the globin genes are organized into two gene families or cluster. There are alpha gene family and beta gene family. So what are there in the alpha gene family? There are two genes coding for the alpha globin chain present on each one of the chromosome 16. So there are two chromosomes of each, one pair of each chromosome, like 16, one has from maternal, one has from paternal. So on each chromosome, there are two globin chain. Then zeta gene, this is also other member of the alpha gene cluster, again found on chromosome 16. Why I am discussing this globin synthesis? Because this is important when you will read about the thalassemias, because there are alpha thalassemia, beta thalassemia. Beta again has minor and major thalassemias, whereas alpha has 4 categories. So that's why we are discussing about these gene families, alpha and beta. So alpha gene family is two genes for alpha globin on each arm of the chromosome 16. Then zeta also present along with the alpha gene on the chromosome 16, and it is active during the embryonic development. Then comes the beta gene. Synthesis of beta globin occurs from a single gene located on each. There is only one beta gene. That's why there are only two varieties of thalassemia, thalassemia major and thalassemia minor. So they are present on the chromosome 11. This chromosome also contains 4 other genes. One is this epsilon and another is gamma. So you can see from this diagram. So there are, this is beta gene cluster, one beta, delta, then this is gamma, this is epsilon. These are two pseudogene. This is chromosome 16, this is chromosome 11, and this is two alpha genes, alpha 1, alpha 2. These are two pseudogenes, and this is zeta gene. So pseudogene are family members that do not code for the functional mRNAs or the proteins. So two gamma genes, gamma, just see here, G gamma and A gamma. They synthesize gamma globin chain of fetal hemoglobin, and one delta gene producing delta globin chain found in the adults to a minor extent of hemoglobin HbA2. So in the next class, I will discuss about hemoglobinopathies and methemoglobin. I think I have repeated a lot. Things should be clear to you. But still, if you have doubt, please, when you are coming for your practical, you can always come and meet me so that I can take your doubts, and the subject should be clear to you. Although there is lot of repetition in both physiology and biochemistry, still I think if you still have some doubt, I can make it clear to you. So this is how it happens in that at the tissue level and at the lungs level, just a diagrammatic representation of what we have seen. So here in the lungs, carbon dioxide binds to the hemoglobin, Hemoglobin is a relaxed form, so it takes oxygen to the tissues where the carbon dioxide concentration is more. The oxygen and the partial pressure of oxygen is less. The oxygen gets released, it gets converted to the tense form, binds to the carbon dioxide. This is your carb amino hemoglobin. This binds to the NH moiety of the in the form of a carboxyl group, carbon dioxide. This is 23% hemoglobin is bound in this form. Rest I have told you in the chloride shift how it is bound in the bicarbonate form. It is carried to the lungs. Here in the lung, carbon dioxide gets expelled from the hemoglobin during expiration, and this is the whole cycle. Carbon dioxide generated by the Krebs cycle, water and carbon dioxide, carbonic anhydrase act on it, H2CO3 carbonic acid is synthesized. It gets broken down to bicarbonate and protons. Protons gets buffered by the hemoglobin in the lungs because of high partial pressure. Hemoglobin again gets converted to the relaxed form, take oxygen to the peripheral tissue, and here from this H plus ions along with the bicarbonate, they gets with the help of carbonic anhydrase gets converted back to the carbon dioxide and it gets exhaled. I think things must be clear. So thank you very much. Take care. And in case of any doubt, please let me know. Minimize नहीं पे ये रहा. स्पीड ज्यादा तो ठीक. और पिछली बार बच्चों ने ना एक जनरल कंप्लेंट थोड़ा सा मैम सब टीचर्स की बीच में तेज हो जाती है.
आपको ये तो आइडिया हो गया होगा ना.
मुझे सी मैंने पहले भी लिया हुआ है. बैठो ना आप. ओनली थिंग इज हेलो. हाँ जी हेलो मैम. हेलो.